Hi guys, welcome back to this week's episode. Again, I'm Arianna.
And I'm Angelica.
This week we're deciding to talk about our postpartum experiences and what not to say to moms, new moms, old moms, in general, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, kind of just going over our past week a little bit. It's been so Zane had his 6 month shots yesterday, and I kind of went over briefly last week how we had sleep trained Zane. And while it was really great for like a few weeks, he was sleeping through the night, so that was awesome. I was able to catch up on sleep that I lost for those several first months. But now, he stopped teething last month. So with the teething, that was a struggle getting back into sleeping through the night. And then with his shots yesterday, I really try not to give him Tylenol unless he really needs it. And last night was one of those nights where he really needed it. So I gave him some Tylenol, but the doctor says like it can take about an hour for it to kick in. So that's where I struggle. I know some people even give their babies before or right after getting their shots done so that it kind of like prematurely helps them not have any pain.
Yeah, my mom told me because I thought Whitney, my daughter, right, was going to get shots at her 2 week. I don't know why I thought she was getting shots, but I thought she was getting shots. So I was like, take some Tylenol, and asked before because like we were always told to give y'all Tylenol before your shots because yeah, it would help out. But when I asked the pediatrician, she goes, "Don't you dare be doing that! Like we will give them the Tylenol in office before the shots."
Wow.
We were like, oh, okay.
That's a really nice office. My doctor has never mentioned anything like that. I think that's really important to find a good doctor that you're comfortable with, especially if they're taking care of your child. A lot of the times, every time I go to the doctor's office, you have to deal with those receptionists. And mind you, not many receptionists are happy to be there. But yeah, anyway. So he had he had gotten a flu shot yesterday, so he was up every 2 hours last night. So it was just a matter of me giving his binky, and then I was trying to wean, or not to wean, but to stray away from giving him Tylenol until it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I just need 2 hours, 3 hours straight of sleep, and so I gave him that, and then he was good to go. But other than that, we've just been hanging out at home. I didn't mention in this last episode, but my husband and I are both realtors. So since I've had Zane, it's been more of my husband, Jimmy, taking more of the role, doing it more full time so that I'm able to have the luxury of staying at home with Zane. So yeah, that's pretty much been my week. How was your week? How have you been?
Well, we also had lunch together. We had
I'm
child.
forgetting about that. Like literally 2 days ago.
Yeah, we went to the mall, but yeah, yesterday was busy for us too. Whitney decided, of course, my husband, he's a drone pilot, so he basically audits cell phone towers, right? So he finally got work. So he's been in Tennessee this whole week. So that's been, an adjustment of me being the sole provider for her and the home, the dog. But she decided to get constipated, but I wouldn't even count it as constipated because she was pooping. It was just not as often, and she was needy. She wanted to be held. I'm like, okay, she's not like that typically. Yeah. So finally, I went to the pediatrician yesterday, and sure enough, they tested her poop, and yeah, she's basically lactose.
Wow.
So yeah, so she has to be on a hyperallergenic formula.
I'm so surprised that they switched you straight to hypoallergenic because I remember when Zane was around Whitney's age, he wasn't going as often as I thought that babies would go that often. And so when I took him in, the doctor basically said that it was more of the frequency. It wasn't about the frequency of how often they pooped, but more of like the consistency. So if it was more solid rather than clay-like or anything like that, then if it was solid, then he definitely was
Mhm.
constipated. But because that wasn't the case, the doctor said that he's known babies that had taken like a week to finally have a bowel movement. And I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what could this be due to with the fussiness? And so he's like, it's probably just due to gas.
Mhm.
So from there, we had a ton of formula switches too. Like
I
that was a
remember.
struggle, figuring out what worked best. But the doctor told me that the hypoallergenic, because I asked if that would
Mhm.
be a better option, and the doctor was like, well, I've seen a lot of babies that I've switched to hyperallergenic and they got even more constipated.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised that they switched straight to that.
So she was telling me that it's not constipation because she's going, right? And it was full liquid, so she was never like putting out pebbles or anything like that. And so I told him, I was like, I've been rubbing her tummy, doing the bicycle kicks, holding her knees to her chest, and she's been passing gas, but sometimes it's like, okay, we need a poop, or we have like
Yeah.
a shard,
Uh-huh.
but she's like, no, it still counts as a poop, even if it's that little shard. So they like tested it, and sure enough, it was like some protein bond, I don't know, but essentially she's lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
So they immediately put her to hyperallergenic, so I was like, okay. And so I was on Similac, and so then I was when we went to HB, they had none of it, the aluminium or whatever,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
And so the pediatrician told us, she goes, but she can have any of the hyperallergenic. So she goes, if you have Infamil, that's great. If you have the HB brand, that's great. It doesn't matter. So I was like, okay, but I don't like change, but that's what she's on.
Yeah.
So.
And it's just a matter of trial and error for
Mhm.
everything in motherhood. I feel like formula is just the beginning of it. But hopefully that will work out. It should.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of mixed different things. I'm such a like Google mom that every little thing I'm like, is it normal for my 6-month-old to blank? And I remember searching a bunch of formulas and seeing what would work best for their babies and just trying it off of that. But
Yeah.
it's really tricky when it comes to formula because I guess you're not supposed to switch them so often.
Well, and then she was telling me too. She goes, most of them. She goes, they don't like it. She goes, you have two babies. Either they don't care, they'll eat it, or they don't like it. So she's like, just put a little bit of what they have now and mix it, and then just wean them off. I'm just like, okay, whatever. But luckily she took it. She's like her dad and just will eat it.
Yeah.
So she's been fine. She just doesn't smell cute anymore. Like with the formula breath, I was like, oh, you smell kind of cute. Now I'm like, you smell gross, girl.
Stinky milk. I remember that. Well, Zane will still have that, especially since he has his two bottom teeth in. The doctor said that I can put like a little warm washcloth to kind of brush them or clean them. But he has that milky breath, especially since he has this passy in his mouth throughout the night, which I hope is not going to be a struggle whenever he gets a little bit older. But we'll figure it out when we get there. So today we kind of wanted to talk about postpartum and aftercare and just some of our own experiences. And then later we wanted to go over some things to stop telling a mom, period. Not just a first time mom, a seasoned mom. We're talking about moms in general. So did you want to start off with your experience?
Sure, yeah. So postpartum for me, I mean, I wasn't diagnosed with postpartum depression, but I would say maybe, yeah, the baby blues for sure. I feel like I had them really bad because, I was in the hospital 2 weeks before I gave birth on bed rest, and it came at one point I couldn't even shower. I got dizzy taking a shower, and it was just like it. And I asked the nurses, "Is this normal?" And they're like, "Yeah, like when you're on bed rest, like anything knocks you."
So while you hadn't even given birth to Whitney yet, you were feeling dizzy in the shower?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so that was happening, right? Bed rest, whatever, right? And then I finally had her, and I felt like I couldn't do anything because my incision hurt. And I should say this too. I'm not someone who can swallow pills. I will not. I will chew the pill. Like I just can't swallow pills. It's a phobia of mine. And so.
Will it make you gag?
Yes, and I'll throw it up.
Oh
yeah,
no.
Yeah, because David's treated me like, my husband's name's David. He's treated me like a dog. He's like, here, eat this. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, there's a pill. I spit it out.
That's so funny. I feel like in life, there's the worst thing that you can realize is, oh, I'm about to throw up. I think that's the worst feeling ever.
It's just like gagging, and then it's like, I spit
The
it
saliva that comes up
Yes.
at the bottom. Ugh.
So I can't do it. So when I told the nurse that when I got to my room, and she's like, okay, you can have Motrin. Like on the pain level, she goes, you can have Motrin if you don't feel it, this narcotic or this narcotic, right? You know, the higher doses, the narcotics, you get up to more pain. And I was like, I can't do pills. And she goes, well, we only have gel like narcotic. She's like, let me see if we can do it in IV. Well, supposedly they can't. I don't know. So I was only on Motrin, like 600 milligrams of Motrin. That's all.
You were on that period cramp reliever that doesn't even relieve period cramps, girl.
I've never had that, so but I just suffer through the pain. So there I was, just having a Motrin, and
Jeez.
so I mean that was kind of hard. And then sure, when we got home too, it again, I felt like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't use the bathroom by myself, you know. I couldn't shower, and then two, you never realize how much you use your core with a C-section. Like I was, I got out of the shower and I was trying to like, you know, wrap the towel around me to like dry my back, and it hurt. I was like, I didn't think it would reach that low. I guess of the pain or the stretching.
Did it feel like whenever you've had like a major core workout and you're sore, like the 2 days after? Is that how it felt, or
no? It's like a burning. I remember the first time I got up from the hospital bed, they're like, okay, you need a walk. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. It's like, what? Okay, hold on. It took me a while to get up to a room because they kept pushing me on my stomach, right? So after I finally got in my room, like 2 hours later, they're like, okay, you need to start walking. I'm like, what the hell? I just, whatever, right? So I got up and I remember sitting there and David's in front of me. He's like, okay, you ready? And I was like, yeah. And so I got up and it was just like pulling. And I was like hunched over and I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to stand up straight?
Yeah.
So sure enough, I was like, okay, 1, 2, 3. And I just like pushed air out because it feels like you're being ripped apart in a sense. It's just like a burning heat. I guess I would honestly, if you got a tattoo, that's how I would maybe like once it goes numb after a while, it's like just that constant hot, like I don't know. Like that's essentially how it was the whole time. And then if you moved one way or something like that, it was a nightmare. But back to what I was trying to get to. Yeah, I think I had the baby blues for sure because then when we got home, you know, she's crying. Yeah, she's right next to me, but I couldn't physically get out of bed. Like I had to have like a tower of blankets on the floor to even lift myself up, my butt onto the bed. David had to like hold me. Someone dragged my legs onto the bed. So then when she's crying, I'm just looking at her. I'm like, I can't even help you. And I feel bad because I'm like, David, you gotta, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle, you know, and I think too, just not being home, my own home for 2 weeks, and then coming home and not being able to do anything, you know. I'm just in my underwear and a shirt because I'm trying to breastfeed, you know, and bond with her. But then it's like you're trying to take care of myself, and I can't even see my own incision. So he's having to look, or my mom's having to look, like, does it look good, you know? And then with that too. I had a vacuum pump on my incision, so like they put like this like big band-aid on it essentially, right? And then they put a vacuum in the bandage area. So I had this little vacuum I had to put around my neck and go with me everywhere. So that was, you know, something annoying too. It's like I almost got out of bed. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna drag this thing. So that was annoying, you know, because it's getting in the way. So yeah, it was a mess of things. And then too, you know, meeting my daughter and having people wanting to come see her, and it's just like, no, you know,
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like because I got to protect her, you know, in my stomach, and now it's like the world's like, oh, gimme, and I'm like, no, this is mine.
That's it is such a hard transition whenever you go home from the hospital, especially after you being there for so long. You mourn the old life that you used to have. You're happy that you have your baby now and that you're able to meet them and be there with them, but it's a new phase of motherhood that you just mourn your old life.
Yeah, I mean, I even mourned my own home. It's like as I lived upstairs, I live in a 2-story, and it's like I want to go downstairs. I want to make myself a cup of coffee, you know, like, you know, you just want to do
normalcy.
Exactly. And so like my husband's making me breakfast, you know, and I'm particular with things, and so he's like, oh, here, I put a little cheese on it. I'm like, oh, I want more cheese, but I feel bad for asking for that, you know,
because you don't want to seem like a nag. I'm the same exact way. I like my things a certain way, and it's been hard, especially with Jimmy and taking care of Zane sometimes. Like you know your baby, you know the certain cries, what they're needing, if they're hungry, if their diaper needs to be changed, especially if you're there with them 24/7. So you're, as the primary caretaker, you just know what your baby needs, and so it's hard sometimes to just be hands off and just watch them try.
Yes, I know. Even sometimes now, David's holding her. I'm just like, just pick her up a little bit. Yes, I got my. But I'm like,
but okay, I'm just gonna walk away and let you do what
you're doing great, sweetie. And then I'm like, okay.
Just stressing out in the bathroom. I know
exactly. But I mean, so that was, you know, the most difficult part about it. But I'll get out of the sad, right? So since I was there so long, my hospital bag looked very different compared to a lot of people's, right? Yeah. I didn't have to wear the gown the whole 2 weeks. They said, oh, you can wear whatever. So I was wearing t-shirt and shorts and everything. Yeah. I kept my room like a morgue, supposedly. I was hot. I was like, the lowest it went was like 64, and I was like, I'm sweating in here.
Oh my gosh, I wonder why you were so hot.
I think I now realized I was really hot my whole pregnancy, because now I'm like, oh, it's chilly in here. And David's like, we used to keep this for the whole time you were pregnant. I'm like, it's cold.
Girl, it was like an igloo in your house. I remember coming over here and I would be like, I need to make sure to bring my sweater because I am going to be freezing.
Well, I was even freezing David, and my husband's a big guy, and he doesn't get cold. He was like, it's cold in here. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, so you know, I had all the clothes. I brought all my medications, my skincare, my shower, you know, because it's like I was there for so long. Yeah, I had her diaper backpack, you know. Originally, I think if I would have carried her inside the full term to her due date, I'm sure she would have been much bigger, because at the time, you know, the whole pregnancy, they're like, oh, she's gonna be a big baby, the way she was measuring and everything. So I packed a newborn, 0 to 3 months, and a 3-month outfit, just because I didn't know how big of a baby, and so I just kept the stuff in there.
But did you do your makeup whenever you gave birth, because you knew whenever you were gonna give birth?
I didn't, and so when after I had her on Friday, I didn't get to do my skincare because I couldn't get up, and I couldn't even brush my teeth, or I didn't know where my retainer was because we moved rooms.
You wear a retainer?
I did.
Oh, yes, you've told me that. Yes, I forgot.
Yes, I have a retainer and a mouth guard. And I really want to Google this too, because I didn't wear my retainer Friday and Saturday night, right? So we got home Sunday. My jaw was not aligned. Like,
really?
I would eat something and it felt like my mouth was like on two
just from those 2 days of not wearing it.
Yes. And so like I did hear some things that, like, you know, or I guess read that, you know, your joints can become loose during birth, you know, with stuff like that. And they even told me in the hospital, like, your hips might feel bigger right now, even though you didn't deliver vaginally, but your body just
preparing yourself to do it that way.
Yeah, and so same thing, like your joints will loosen and everything. I'm like, so did that happen with my mouth? Because it took a week for my bite essentially to get back aligned. Yeah. So you would see me eating, I'd be like,
to the side.
Yes. And so so it was weird. That was the weird thing I experienced after it. But yeah, that was what was in my hospital bag. Nothing spectacular.
Did you bring like extra pads like those? Because I brought some Depends.
So I originally I didn't know I was gonna bleed. I was like, oh, I'm having a C-section. Why am I gonna bleed? And they're like, no, you're gonna bleed. I was like, oh. So the first day I used what they had, their pads, and they were horrible. So
those things are super thick and long.
They're thick and long, and they have this one little strip of glue and
to tape onto your underwear.
Yes, and I'm like, this isn't good. This is moving around.
Yeah.
And so I brought the Depends. I brought the Depends, and those were a life changer. And they were what is the word? Compressing. So it felt good on my incision, because they also gave me a I don't want to call it a waist trainer, but it was essentially a waist trainer that they put on me to have that compression, which was like a game changer. Yeah. But yeah, no, I used the Depends.
Just to keep everything tight and try to form itself back together.
Yeah, because as soon as I would take that thing off, it was immediate, like 10 times worse pain. Like that thing was golden, and I put that thing as tight as it would go. But yeah, I stopped using their pads and I used the Depends.
I got one of those, not a waist trainer, like a faja after maybe like a month after I had given birth. And it felt like it was constantly pushing on my intestines. I don't know how some women can wear it every single day. Like, I was just more so wearing it so that I thought that it would somehow bring my shape back together, but it's all like workout, exercise, and diet. That's what's really gonna bring your body back to normal.
See, and I was gonna get a faja because we had a PT come and see me before the C-section, and she was like, "You're gonna be getting this like girdle." That's I think what it is. And we're like, oh, "Okay," and she goes, "Make sure they put it low enough because sometimes they put it too high and it's not gonna do anything." And I was like, "Oh, well, should I go get a faja?" And she goes, "No, that's the worst thing you could do." And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah. I just heard a bunch of mixed stuff. Like some women would be like, "Oh, it's gonna bring your uterus back to where it was, so you should get one." And so those things are not cheap. If you're familiar with fajas, they're almost $300. My husband doesn't know this, but I did spend a pretty penny on mine. I don't think he even listens. He's so fake. Anyway, so I got one, but I'll wear it like if I'm wearing maybe like a nice one of those bodycon dresses, which I rarely wear nowadays. But if I'm like going out and I want to enhance my shape, because it really does suck you in and it gives you like the hourglass kind of look, but you're suffering on the inside when you wear it.
And see, I thought about it too, even like afterwards, the same thing. You hear like, "Oh, it really does." And I follow that YouTuber, Nazanin Kavari.
Oh, I love her. She's so beautiful.
She is. And so I'm like, well, look at her, you know?
She also had surgery.
Do you think?
Yes.
I think it's genetics.
Well, I think she has amazing genetics, but I also know that because I have seen her before she had gotten really popular, and she didn't have that type of body before. And I think I've heard her mention it.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to go back and stalk her. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, but I was like, wow, look at her.
And see, that's the thing is like, that's your prerogative if you want to get that done to your body, but what message are you putting out whenever you don't honestly say, "I've had the surgery done," or "This is what I've had done,"
or me thinking that no, it's been natural this whole time, but it hasn't. Wow, okay, I'll have to do that after.
Yeah, but I mean, she's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. She looks great. She's a great mom, and from what it looks like, and she's killing it with those twins.
What was I gonna say? But I mean, that was it in my hospital bag. I think, yeah. I mean, I know we're gonna get into breastfeeding here in a minute, but I'll let you have your moment.
Yeah.
Postpartum.
Yeah. Well, so I remember. Do you remember? It was like about a week before I had given birth. I told you how I was contemplating on bringing like a makeup bag because, like I mentioned last time, I'm a huge makeup junkie. Like 2016 YouTube era. That's when I learned how to do everything makeup. Carly Bible, Nicole Guerrero, Casey Holmes, like all the OG YouTube people. Like I loved watching them. So I asked Arianna, I was like, "Should I bring my makeup bag?" And I think you were like, "Yeah, like maybe just so that you can have it done." I don't think I knew I was gonna have an induction date. I didn't know anything the week before. It's so crazy how some things can just happen so fast within a week.
That, and I think, remember, we all were at dinner and like betting, when is Angelica gonna go into labor?
Oh yeah, I know. And then that same day, I remember going to Walmart to get one of those exercise balls.
Yeah.
To kind of jump on. And when I was taking calls at my old job, since I was working from home, I would move my office chair to the side and then I would just be bouncing on it. I would also do those sidewalk walks. Have you heard of that? I think that's what it's called.
Oh, like the curb walk?
Curb walk,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
I remember I asked my sister, I don't know why, you get to a point to where you're just so anxious and you're ready to meet your baby that you're willing to do anything to like help speed up the process. So I did some curb walking during my breaks sometimes. And but anyway, getting back to it, I brought my makeup bag, but because I had given birth like before my induction date, all I had was my lashes, and maybe if we're comfortable, we'll insert a picture of me when my son was laid on my chest.
Angelica gives so much shit to herself. She looked beautiful because I told David, I was like, man, okay, they make delicious buffalo dip. I want the recipe. I still want it.
And girl, I got you. It's just cream cheese, rotisserie chicken, Frank's Red Hot.
I don't know. I gotta watch it because I try. But anyways, I remember telling David, like, text James and ask him what the recipe is because I really want it. And he goes, okay, no worries. And right before he did, I think, or David said first, oh, hey, how's it going? And I was like, oh, have you heard? He goes, oh, yeah. And I look, and it's Angelica, like, serene. And I was like, oh, first I was like, she went through it. But I was like, but you looked good.
My face was like this.
But your skin was great. And I remember, I zoomed on your eyelashes, like, damn, where'd you get those done? I was like, we just saw them.
So I've been, since I guess like 2020, I've been into the whole do-it-yourself type of thing, especially since it helps you save a good buck. I have been doing like the lashes underneath my natural lashes, but like the store-bought ones, and so they can last you for up to a week. They can last you to the next day if you are constantly like rubbing on them. So you just gotta keep good care of them. Don't come at me if you're an eyelash tech or esthetician or anything like that. I have been doing this for a while now, so.
They look great. I mean,
thank you. So, but I really wanted to have my makeup done, and my husband is also not the best at taking pictures and good videos. I'm still kind of, scolding him about that.
He's better than, he is an Instagram husband though. I mean, some of your pictures, I'm like, we know James took that.
Yes.
He's there. I can still see him
in the mirror or the window. Oh yeah. So if you ever see like a picture of me full body, usually it's my husband, but that's after several. If you go through my camera roll, there's like about 30 pictures of me doing the same pose.
That's okay, and that's how we have to train them, because David does the same thing too. He gets so annoyed, he's just like, and we're like, no, angles, David.
Yes. And he still has yet to know that this, my right side, is my angle, is my side.
Oh, he gotta know.
Yeah. So anyway, he took that picture, and right off the bat, I did have some baby blues, because it was a very dramatic shift in my life. Whenever you have your baby in your tummy, you're able to just keep them to yourself, and you feel their little kicks, and you just cherish that time. And when we came home, I was still dealing with that spinal headache, so that was really painful. I kind of had like the same experience as you, except a little bit different, because I didn't have a C-section, but I had that spinal headache. So Jimmy was taking most of the care for like middle of the night wakings, and I was breastfeeding at the time, but I wasn't given a good amount of time with my lactation specialist to learn how to do it laying down. Like seasoned moms really know, like they can just do it any type of position, and the baby is good, and that wasn't the case for me. So it was really hard to deal with that. I remember crying almost every single day, probably about every hour. And so I have to say it was more so baby blues rather than postpartum depression. And the only reason I tread lightly on that is because it's a hot topic for a lot of women, and I think that women should be given a lot more care and a lot more attention, because I remember being asked by the nurses, how are you feeling today? Are you okay? And whenever I went back to the ER to get that blood patch done, they asked me if I was feeling like unaliving myself. And that was it. And of course I said no, like that wasn't my thoughts. But on the other hand, I was feeling very sad because I wasn't able to fully take care of my son the way I wanted to. And I wasn't fully able to get like a perfect latch, and I was good to go. So that was a very hard thing to deal with. So,
did you ever have like anything else other than sadness? Just because I feel like postpartum, you think, okay, it's only like sad, depressing, right? But it could be anger and anxiety. Like, did you
Yeah.
ever feel that too?
I did have a lot of anxiety,
Mhm.
and I still deal with that today. And then towards like the second month, I started getting a lot more anger
Mhm.
towards Jimmy,
Mhm.
and it would just be a lot to do with the fact that I was losing a lot of sleep.
Mm.
So I am a huge, before Zane, I never had trouble sleeping when I was pregnant. Like I loved being able to sleep 12 hours sometimes if I was able to. I've never really struggled with any type of insomnia. So it was a very hard transition to deal with those sleepless nights whenever I was up and ready to go. Like once I was healed from the spinal headache, I was like, okay, I need to just be with my son 24/7. And if I step away from him, then I will have this curtain of mom guilt on me. So that would create anxiety. I remember we went to like some type of, I think we went on a date, and my mom and my dad were watching Zane, and it was hard not to text my mom, how's he doing? Can you send me a picture?
Yes.
And when my husband is sitting right across the table from me, and he's probably craving that one-on-one connection that we haven't been able to get in a while. So that was a struggle. So yeah, I did feel pretty angry, but that's still something that it ebbs and it flows sometimes. And I think that once you become a parent, that's when you truly learn patience. And I love my son. I love every single waking moment with him. It's just hard sometimes whenever you're waking up in the middle of the night. And I don't know how you do it, especially with it being a month into it.
It's patience. I would never say I had the best patience. I'm a very quick fuse, you know.
Same.
David calls me a light switch sometimes because sometimes I'll be great and he says something and I just immediately go like, I've worked on myself though. I'm like, you know what, it's okay. We're gonna let that slide.
Yeah.
You know, my mom's voice comes. There's bigger fights. There's a, you know, but I know patience hit me hard on Monday night when Whitney would not go to bed. And I would pick her up. I'm like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
What is wrong?
And then you feel so upset with yourself because why did I just lose my anger?
I was still angry. I was so angry and frustrated. And again, I'm by myself. My first night here, right? And so I went for a drive. I took her at 11 o'clock at night and I drove to HB and back. And then I carefully put her back in her thing and she went to sleep for a little bit, but it was just like, oh my God. So Tuesday again, I was like, what am I going to do? I couldn't eat breakfast because again, she wanted to be held and I was making bacon. I'm like, I can't hold you while making bacon, you know? So I said, okay, we're going to go for a drive. So again, for 2 hours, we went for a drive. We went to Chick-fil-A. I ate in the parking lot. I read a book, you know, with the car on. I ran errands and I came back. I said, okay, I'm going to put the TV on. I'm going to put the radio on. So I like classic rewind, you know, on Sirius XM. So all the rock. So I put that on. I said, we're gonna change it. We're gonna do something different.
Switch it up.
Yeah. I said, worst case, if she doesn't like this, because I know I would always have that on the car. I had a playlist on my phone, you know, it had rock, it just had different stuff on it, right? I'm like, and her favorite song in the womb was Holy Diver by Dio. It's a very headbanger song, but she would always like, you know, all my stomach. So, you know, I'm like, okay, if not, we'll turn that on. We'll put it on full blast. I don't care if the neighbors, you know? And so I just remember that night, I'm looking at her, I'm like, okay, I Googled, okay, what can I do, right? I did the bicycles, I fed her. That's when I realized she's constipated. Yeah. She hasn't pooped. And I just remember feeling like a wave of like, it's okay. Yeah. We're gonna get through this together. And that's like, so even now we're still navigating, I'm like, it's okay, Whitney. You're good, girl, but girl, I don't know what else to do, right? You know, but yeah, patience is, it hits you, I feel like. So you're just like, wow. And then the same thing too. I felt guilty. I'm like, I feel bad for yelling at her. You know, I know she's a baby. I'm just like, what can I do? Yeah.
It's a very frustrating thing because you're trying everything. You're changing the diaper, you're giving them milk, they're you're doing everything in your power to figure out what the issue is, and sometimes it's just a matter of just waiting it out. We did a lot of walks. I remember those times. I thought that my son was colicky at one point, but it was just because he was just suffering from gas pains. I remember that being a big thing. So because I wasn't able to get a good latch with him laying down, after I started feeling better from my headache, then I started to be able to fully go back into trying to exclusively breastfeed. So we were supplementing with formula and then using my milk during the day, and sometimes like he would take it directly from the boob, and then sometimes he just would not want to drink, and so I was like, okay, well maybe he's not hungry, but he would still be like, he'd be doing the signs, I forget what, he'd be rooting like he was still hungry. So then we would give him a bottle and he would chug it. So I was like, okay, well maybe I should just stick to exclusively pumping. And so I would do that, but it would be hard because since we were giving him formula at night, my boobs would be like engorged with milk, so I needed to pump. So here I am waking up at 10 o'clock, waking up at 12 o'clock, waking up at, but every single time I was feeding him, I also had to pump right after, because if I didn't, then I could face having mastitis. I could have just super painful boobs in the morning, and that's not fun. So then I was getting like maybe like 3 hours of sleep at night, and you're, as a human, you cannot physically work with just 3 hours of sleep at night. So then I also tried to use those nipple covers, and that did me good, but it just wasn't good for my mental. Like I just was constantly worried of, if I don't pump, then I'm not gonna be able to produce as much as he's needing, because they go from 2 ounces to having 4 ounces every feed to having 6 ounces. And so I was doing really great in the morning whenever I would do my morning pump, but so does everyone, because that's your first pump of the day. As the day went on, I would get like that much, maybe like an ounce, and I was like, it's just not cutting it, and I'm not happy. And I think that once you get to that point to where it's not creating any type of happiness, it's a beautiful experience, it's a beautiful bonding experience. However, if you are just cranky throughout the day, it's not worth it.
Did your nipples ever get blistered or crack?
Yeah.
That was I was terrified when I saw that happen. I was like,
well, have you ever heard about women whose nipples come off from breastfeeding? Yes.
Oh, I don't want to. I kind of want to Google, but then I don't want to Google.
I haven't Googled how that would look, but what? Do you just look like a Barbie underneath, like with no nipples, or just like just meat, just exposed?
Yeah, I want.
And does it grow back? I don't know. I didn't look it up. I've heard that is a thing. Thankfully that didn't happen, but yes, I remember, because they always pick a favorite side, and so I remember he would always choose my left side over my right. So the aftermath of breastfeeding is, I've realized that my left is a little bit lower than my right.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's not fun.
Oh. Well, I tried breastfeeding. I was not successful. My milk would not come in. So our lactation specialist was there for an hour after I she delivered or whatever, and so she was literally showing us of like how to express the milk, and so she spent an hour there on my right side expressing milk into a bottle.
Wow.
And then too, so my OB had it that I was delivering at 37 weeks. The hospital had it that I was delivering at 36 weeks and 6 days. So they're like, she's a preemie, right? So because of that, you have to do so many extra tests. So she had to do a glucose test. So essentially, if you fail that 3 times, they have to go to the NICU no matter what. So since I wasn't even producing milk or barely any milk, I had to supplement with formula as well. So that was, a nightmare having. So I'm trying to like manually pump because she wouldn't latch at all. She'd latch for a little bit and let go. And same thing, I guess the rooting, right? She's looking, but she would not latch. So they're like, "Are you fine with just pumping?" I'm like, "I don't care, that's fine." And so David took it upon himself and would pump me, and I'm trying to express on one side he's pumping manually, but I wouldn't get anything, like nothing worth like a spoonful is what I got. And so, but she needed to pass those tests, so we actually had to get the formula. But even when we came home and everything, it still was nothing. I wouldn't even get an ounce. Even pump, I'd be pumping for an hour, and they're like, "Make sure you keep doing it." Still nothing. And I remember I pumped one night, and it was good. I finally got, I think, like an ounce and a half, and then I saw my nipple crack, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And but again, I was pumping so much, and it came to a point, and David was great. He was like, "Are you ready to pump?" I said, "Yeah," and he would wash all the parts and everything. But then it came to a point, I'm like, I don't want to pump. Like, I'm not getting anything. I'm here for an hour, and there's like this, like nothing worth it. So then I would take a break, and then again, I'm just like, and I couldn't do anything because I had the electric one, but I still have to hold it there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just feel like you're constantly plugged into the machine if you're not handling your baby.
Yeah, and so my mom was like, she's like, "You feel like a cow." I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm not even producing anything, And so I made the decision. I'm like, I can't do this again, and I felt like I was already in such a rabbit hole of not being able to do anything for myself, do anything for my daughter, and then I can't even
on top of that
do. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So we went to formula too, because then even what I was getting, she wouldn't take it. And so then we went to the pediatrician, after those couple days where you have to see them right away. I told her, and she goes, "You can mix it into the formula." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll keep pumping."
I heard that, yeah.
She wouldn't take it. She knew my breast milk was in there.
Do you remember whenever I had pumped a full bottle for Zane when he was like around Whitney's age, and I gave it to you so that you could feed it to him?
Yes.
He did not want to take it. That too, I was like, does he not like my milk?
Yeah. I don't know. But it's so disheartening though, because you're like, I did all this work and you're not.
For you not to want it.
Yes, and so that's again, you're just like, oh my God, you're crying. I was crying. I was like, why won't she take this? And I was talking to a friend. She doesn't have a baby, but her friend has a baby, and she was saying she felt resentment towards her son because she's trying to breastfeed him and he won't take it.
Yeah.
And she goes, "This is what my body is supposed to do. This is how I'm supposed to feed you, and you won't take it." Like, and she's like, my friend was telling me that her friend was saying that she's like, I felt resentment. She's like, I felt like she felt her son was resenting her because like, why are you giving me this useless boob? And she's like resenting him, like, why won't you take my boob?
Right, yeah.
But so no, she's formula now. But it's hard, and I feel like that's another thing women experience. They're like, you gotta breastfeed, or what are you doing, formula or breastfeed?
Even men. So yes. I've had some family that have asked me, and they were male, asking me if I was breastfeeding, and it's a very private matter, and I think that as a human you try to find commonalities so that you can relate. So sometimes it does come from a good place, but most of the time it's not something that should concern you. Fed is best. It doesn't matter whether that baby is being breastfed. I will say, if you are a breastfeeding mama, kudos to you, because that is hard work. I saw this one thing to where it takes up like so many, you lose a lot of calories whenever you are breastfeeding, and it on your mental too, it causes a lot of exhaustion. So because you're burning all those calories throughout the day, so that's amazing if you are doing that. So I think that's one of those things that we wanted to talk about, is comments from people that we would hear while pregnant, and things to just stop telling a mom. So or asking a mom. So if you ask, are you breastfeeding? It comes off as mom shaming, like, because if you aren't, then what? Like, what do you
Yeah.
have to provide to this conversation? Like, so if I am formula feeding, does that make me less of a mother? That's what it made me feel like whenever I was asked that question. Um, and again, it's a pretty private matter.
I think too, I know when I decided to stop breastfeeding, and I had that conversation with David, I felt shameful. Like I felt like a puppy with my tail between my legs, and I was telling him like, I'm gonna stop. And great, he was supportive of it. I said, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But he's like, are you sure? You know? And I was like, yeah, but I felt shame because I'm like, oh my god, I can't even do this. But again, yeah, I know after seeing his parents, like, oh, are you breastfeeding? And it's like, no. Or even just going to the doctors, right? Like, are you breastfeeding or formula? It's kind of like, well, it's like, well, when you first saw me, I said yes. Now it's like, well, no, I'm not. And they're like, and luckily our pediatrician was like, that's great. And she even made the comment. She was like, honestly, formula parents are happier than breastfed. But again, if you're breastfeeding all to you know, I wish I could have done it. But it is a private matter, and everyone goes through it differently. You know, my milk didn't come in. It wouldn't come in, and again, I was already on a downward spiral in the sense of what I was going through. But yeah, I don't like the comments either.
Yeah, and it's such a so you go through, or at least in my experience, I went through my whole pregnancy being like breastfeeding, breastfeeding. I'm just gonna breastfeed. I don't need to worry about formula cost and anything like that, a shortage. And so whenever that happened to me, because I did it for like a good 3 months, just supplementing between breast milk and formula. And then when I finally stopped, it's so important for your spouse to be on the same page with you, and what they say back is very crucial to how you are going to move forward. Because if you have a spouse that's going to be like, my baby is going to be straight breastfed, then they're not really empathizing and understanding where you're coming from.
No, but even too, I know David wasn't coming from a malicious place, but he was just asking.
Yes,
sure? Like, are you sure?
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh my god, I started to crying. I was like, oh my god, am I making a mistake? He said, no, I'm just asking. You know, it's a big decision. You know, and we're talking it through. But it's daunting.
And it can be hard on the spouse's side too. Not nearly as hard as it is for moms, but whenever I had approached Jimmy about it, his first reaction was like, my baby's gonna be breastfed. He's gonna get the best of the best. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, you need to think about how I'm feeling in this moment. So we did have to discuss it, and it was a pretty hard conversation with us, and you wouldn't think that it would be, but it really is. So stop asking if we are breastfeeding, because it does not matter as long as the baby is fed.
Yes, I agree, for sure.
Another one, I remember, so whenever I was working from home, I remember wanting to just take a nap during my 30-minute lunch break. So it was either a nap or you eat. And I wasn't gonna go starving, especially whenever you're pregnant, you can go from 0 to 100. So I remember telling a friend who had a baby, and she was like, well, make sure you sleep before the baby gets here. And I know she was coming from a good place. All of these comments usually are coming from a good place.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But I guess they just don't think of how that would affect you. And so when she told me that, I was like, well, can I just like supply up on my sleep right now? Like, how is that gonna work? How do I do that? So like I said, I slept really well during pregnancy, but some moms, did you struggle with sleep?
I had maybe like a month or two span where I would for work I did 7 to 4. So typically if I didn't have late visits or late calls, I would get my lunch from 3 to 4. So I would take a nap from 3 to 4, and then at 3 in the morning I was wide awake.
Yeah.
And it went on for a good month or two. It was like that flip flop of time, but only for that amount of time. And then I don't know. Growing up, I was always told from 2 to 5 is witching hour. Like that's when all the cuckoos come out. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm up during this time.
It's just instilled in you throughout all these years.
Yes, and so I'm just like, so I would have panic. I'm like, oh my god, what if I see something? And I really do freak myself out.
You know, whenever Zane has like a 3 a.m. wake up, I'm like, oh gosh, please, God.
Yes, that's what I was like, David, go in the dark. But that's that. Other than that, I slept well. Yeah, she was never up. Like, 'cause I know some people are like, oh my god, I bet you they're keeping you up at night already in the womb. And I'm like, no. And they're like, they're not going crazy. I'm like, no. And I remember, I do remember now. Someone told me, they're like, well, they sleep during the day and they're up all night. I'm like, they're like, because all the walking you do during the day. And I was like, no, I work from home. Like, I sit down all day.
Yeah.
And so I'm not experienced that. So that is something I have been told before. They're like, oh, are you already being kept up at night? Because they're moving inside. I'm like, no, she's not. Did you ever get that comment?
About making sure that they sleep during the day and that they're awake at night. No, I never really got that. It was more of just the sleep now while you can.
Gotcha.
And it's a very just disheartening thing to hear, because you're so excited to meet your baby and you're excited for all of the milestones and just the miracle of life in itself, and then you hear this womp womp womp, like okay, I didn't need to hear that. Did you have one that you
had? So I see clients, right? And some of their I see special needs adults, right? So essentially, I make sure there's no Medicaid fraud. But at the end of the day, they literally tell me about their day, their relationships, their drama. I'm just their therapist for them, for some of them. But sometimes they have staff that take care of them, right? So when I told, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. They're like, oh, you're gonna enjoy that vacation. I'm like, how is it a vacation? I'm bringing life into the world. They don't know, your baby doesn't know this world that you've been living in, so they're figuring it out, how to eat, how to breathe, so it's like, this isn't a vacation, people. I don't get to work, but that doesn't mean I'm not actively taking care of somebody who is helpless, like, so that was something I was just like, why do people think this is a vacation? And then two, I know I heard it. So one of the girls in like our department came back and she was asked that, like, how was your vacation? Like, it's not a vacation. And
side eye.
And it's other women saying this too. I had a couple men, the staff, but it's like other women are saying that. And it's like, why would you knew it.
You would think that they would have a little bit more empathy and understanding, but it's definitely not a vacation.
No, and so they're just kind of like, okay. And it's like, part of me thinks too it might be because of age, like an older woman telling a younger woman, like, oh, how was it? Because she's already seasoned. And it's like, you were there, remember,
those baby boomers, they will get you with their comments, and you just kind of get to a point to where you're just like, okay, I'm happy that worked for you. But
I will say I haven't had many experiences. I think the only other thing I've been told was like, I'm trying to think of an example, like, oh, she's had kids before, so she knows what she's doing. And it's like, okay, yeah, but her kids are grown, they're in their 20s, so it's been a while since she's took care of an infant, so it's like, but again, like, this is my baby, your baby best. So it's like, no, listen to these new moms when they're saying, oh, no, please don't do that, do it like this, because again, you are with your child all the time. They're only coming in for a 30-minute visit.
And if they can't respect what you're wanting and how you're wanting them to do it with your baby, then you can't carry my child. I'm sorry, sometimes those boundaries need to be made. And it's sad whenever it's with family, because you want them to be able to see them and watch them grow and hang out with them and babysit whenever you're wanting to go out on a date. But I think I saw like a TikTok of this girl who was imitating this, it was like a grandma, and she was watching the 4-month-old, and she had like a full bottle left, and she's like, oh, she wasn't hungry. And she said, no, she wasn't that hungry. And so after further digging, the grandma was like, oh, she loved that cake that I gave to her earlier. And she's like, Nana, you're not supposed to give my 4-month-old cake.
Oh my God.
Well, she wanted it. So if she wants it under Nana's house, she will have whatever she wants if she asks Nana. And it's like, no, I'm her mother.
Yeah.
And if you know, it's very disrespectful. And it's like, you're not even listening to me.
No, I agree. And honestly too, I don't know, I've armored myself, I guess. Like I'm ready, so I can't take Whitney out yet. She's still too young. Our pediatrician doesn't want her out until she's 3 months, into big crowds. So it's like I'm armored and ready for someone to approach me, and Whitney's gonna be having a meltdown, or they're gonna say something like, or just a look. I'm ready to be like, back off. I'm doing my best. She's doing her best. Like I don't need your comment, your look, your anything. So I'm like, I feel like I'm so ready to confront those people when I go out.
That's good. Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
I remember going to Walmart when Zane was like about 2 months, and he was having a breakdown, and I just needed to take out one thing. So it was supposed to be an in and out type of trip. Like I wasn't trying to browse or anything like that, taking my time. And I remember a lady in line was like, oh, poor baby. Like she kept looking back. So I knew you hear a crying baby, but she was like, oh, poor baby. And I don't know. I just got a sudden annoyance from her saying that, because it's like, I know he's crying, but I'm doing a good job too.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you see a mom out with her babies and they are having a tantrum, go up to her and tell her you are doing a good job, because it will go a long way.
I think that too. I think when you're out in public, everyone always gives the dad praise. Like, wow, look at that.
Oh my
dad.
gosh. And they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. So no, 100%. Go up to that mom and be like, you're doing great as well. But another thing too that reminded me when you're saying that story is when people are talking to your baby saying, oh, did your mom feed you enough?
Oh, the passive aggressive comments.
And it's just like, girl, be quiet.
Or with the socks, like, oh, why mommy didn't want to put socks on you today? Or aren't your feet cold, mommy? We need to get mommy to put socks on you, don't we? And it's like, can you just direct this conversation with me? Like, my child has no idea what you were saying, and mind your business. Like, if my baby is not wearing socks, then he's not wearing socks. Like,
so I used to be one of those people, and I would never say it like to the mom, but like afterwards I'm like, oh my God, that kid wasn't wearing socks, But now having her, I'm like, girl was hot. I needed to take the socks off.
You need to wiggle them things. They get some lint stuck in them, and it feels good in the breeze.
Yeah, so now I'm just like, I don't even care. But part of me still, I'm like, oh my God, she must be wearing socks. But I'm like, you know what? She can't. I don't wear socks all the time. She doesn't need to wear socks all the time. So I've grown past that sock issue thing. But no, I would never be like, why aren't you wearing socks? And in my head, I'd be like, oh my God, there's no socks.
Yeah.
But now having her, I've learned from that mistake, or that passive aggressiveness for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got a lot of the just wait until, and apparently those come, so just wait until blank. So just wait until they start crawling, just wait until they start talking, just every single time. And apparently that doesn't go away. Like it will always be a thing. And so I think for new moms, it can make you feel like your issues are just minimalized. And I think instead of saying something like that, say something encouraging, like we mentioned earlier, telling the moms how great they're doing at every stage and milestone, that not only the baby is at, but with you, because you're growing and you're becoming a new person alongside that baby. So I think that was one. And I think I had another one. Your body will bounce back. So I mentioned last episode that I had gained 50 pounds. Now, apparently the healthy limit is like 15 to 25 pounds. So I definitely doubled that.
But I want to add too, Angelica did not even look like she gained 50 pounds. She
Trust
did.
me. I looked at pictures and I was like, I was a damn walrus. It felt like I was huge.
I just thought you were all belly. As my personal
You're so sweet.
opinion. I wanted to add that too. Last episode too, I was like, she did not look like she gained the 50 pounds.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think that comment, it, instead of saying something like that, help them love and accept. I think acceptance is a huge thing for whatever changes come from the miracle of creating life. Like whether or not your body bounces back, like you become a new person in a new body, a new shell. Like I know my body is never gonna be the same after having Zane. Like it's just how it has to be.
It is, and I think too we should take this opportunity and be like, if your spouse, I don't think either of our spouses are honest about our appearance, but there is some spouses are. You need to have that hard conversation with your spouse. I feel like again, you went through this life-changing experience. And again too, you're at a different age as well. Like you're never gonna be your high school weights, or your body's gonna be like that. Your body's different now too, and your partner needs to accept that and support that. Like you brought their child into this world. This is my body now, and you need to. I'm learning to love my body
and appreciate it.
Yeah, and I need you to help me do that as well, because I know that can be daunting as well. It's like, oh my God, I hate the way I look, and I feel like my husband, or my spouse doesn't
find me attractive, or
exactly. And so it goes back, you're spiraling continuously, but yeah, I think that's a very hot topic.
There's this new thing that I've heard about silky versus crunchy moms. Have you heard of that?
No.
Maybe we can do a segment on it, or an episode on it, but apparently the difference between, and my point with this is we are constantly putting moms against each other. Breastfeeding versus formula, silky versus crunchy. Are you doing sleep training? Are you waking up with them every single time they wake up? Like, stop doing this. It has nothing to do with you. We appreciate you trying to relate, but unless it's a sentence or a comment about you encouraging that mom, just don't say it, And also, the silky versus crunchy. Apparently, silky moms are moms that are turning off Miss Rachel, are iPad moms, are formula feeding.
They are. Okay.
And then crunchy moms are the people, is this organic? Are they're breastfeeding, they're watching Gracie's Corner, Miss Rachel. So I was like, what? I'm in between. I'm a scrunchie, I guess you could call it. But that's just, there's always something new. Of course, I saw this on TikTok, but there's always something new coming out with this jargon and lingo. So just I mean, it's nice to have some comedic way of, but
I feel like that's judging a parenting style.
Right, it goes back to putting them against each other.
Oh, that too, and putting the mom down. So what if I want to be an organic mom or an iPad mom? Because I know, I'm gonna refer back to her, but it's like, I know Naz's recent YouTube video, she did a Q&A, right, about, I guess motherhood and her kids. And she said it too, she goes, I was never gonna be an iPad mom, but now I am, now her son is.
Oh, yeah.
But she's like, me and my husband need that break at dinner, so if that occupies him, and so we can have a dinner to to have a conversation, and then also take care of her twins. Give him the damn iPad.
You don't know until you're actually going through it. And a lot of the time, like before I gave birth or before I had the baby, I was a big person that would be pretty opinionated about how I would see mothers handle their children. So it was a huge eye opener. So I think that at every stage, you might want to put on Miss Rachel while you're eating, just so that you can have a few minutes of peace. And so there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment, and you are doing a great job.
I don't see how it could be a problem, because you want to talk to them or have them hear different voices.
It's educational too. She teaches sign language. She teaches like some, I think she throws in a little bit of bilingual stuff in there. And yeah, my son has been watching Miss Rachel for like since he was about 4 months.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Whitney, I don't know if she watches TV, but at least she'll hear it. She hears Street Outlaws. That's been David's obsession lately. And then when we go to my parents, they're obsessed with K-dramas. So, I mean, she's hearing.
What's that?
You never seen K-dramas?
No.
It's, how do I explain this? Okay, they're all different. So there's one, it's called Mr. Clean, and it's essentially like a soap. I don't know, there's different ones, but it's like the one that they're watching now or whatever, and I hate to admit it because they always had it on. I'm like, oh my god, I could never get into this because it's all subtitles. You have to read because again, it's in a different language. It's in Chinese or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's hard. You have your brain on 24/7.
Yes.
Sometimes you just want to turn on TV just to turn your brain off.
Yeah, and those subtitles, it's quick, so you have to be a quick reader too. And so it's like this one. It's like this girl tried to kill herself. And this guy almost fell from a balcony. So essentially they both landed in water. Well, this guy's soul got into her body, and he woke up in like a different century, and now who is she is becoming the queen. It's a whole thing, but they're all different. Like there's some period pieces, like it talks about like that dynasty and that family, but they just love K-dramas. But it's
K-dramas. That's something I've never heard of.
Their whole Netflix, I had to create a separate profile.
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Yes. Their whole Netflix profile is K-dramas, and now they got into German dramas or whatever. So I went over the other day, and they're like, oh, we're on German now. I'm like, okay.
That's so crazy. I know that they must go a little bit more like hardcore, like their whole storyline might be.
The storyline, the sounds, the outfits, just everything, like on the Mr. Queen episode. So on one of the scenes, she's like, oh, the guy, he's telling himself in the girl's body, he goes, well, maybe I need to get back in that body of water to get myself to wake up, right? And so they're like, oh, there's a big lake. That's where she, everyone who's surrounding her think it's her, right? And they're like, oh, you fell in that lake. So on one of the scenes, she runs, she books it. And this, mind you, she's about to be the queen. And they're like, you can't be running, right? So she's running, and it's all theatrical. It's in the air, like 10 feet up. And then she just plummets into dirt because they drained the lake. But it's very.
Is it supposed to be funny though?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was because my parents were telling me that. They're like, oh no, there's some really funny ones. They're like, watch this clip. I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, I wouldn't like the period one. I'm like, okay.
That's funny. That's cute that they're able to. They have their little TV show that they like to watch.
Oh, there's so many, and they watch their own, and then they talk about it. So yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's what Whitney listens to right now.
Yeah. She'll get into more of what she likes as she gets older.
The way I see it is she's gonna be watching Housewives with me. I mean, the other night.
I wish that I did that with Zane, because now if I have the TV on, he's looking for Miss Rachel.
Well, the other night I put Magic Mike XXL on, and I sent David a picture like, we're having movie night, and you think a girl dad, he's gonna be like, she shouldn't be watching that. What is David saying? I wish I was there.
I knew.
I'm jealous.
I knew you would be like that.
Because he loves Channing Tatum. But yeah, that was just like.
Was it good?
The power went out right on the end.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to say. So we had like a crazy storm this past Thursday.
Yes.
We woke up and our fence was tipped over.
No.
So our backyard, our backyard neighbor has a German Shepherd, and we have a dog. Her name's Lady, and we were gonna let her out that morning, and the fence was gone. So yeah, that's something that we gotta fork up.
The only thing I noticed was I brought our cushions in from the patio set, and when I got home this morning, I'm putting the cushions on, and I put one cushion down, and there's a gecko. And I was like,
I noticed that the cushions were all like fumbled around, like somebody had ransacked.
So as I called David this morning, I said, I don't know if Mr. Gecko hung on to the cushion and stayed in our house for the one night, or it's dead gecko.
Oh.
But when looked out later, Mr. Gecko was gone from the cushion. So I guess he hung on to that cushion and stayed in the house.
Can you imagine him just flying through the wind? It was some crazy wind.
Yeah. But I was just like, there was a gecko in our house.
How big are geckos?
This one was like they're sizable here because Jiggy, our dog, she chases them. And they know she because it's funny because she'll be
play
like,
with her.
yes!
That's so funny. Like their brains are probably the size of a pea, and they're that smart to play that with a dog.
And there's two of them, and so they'll go back and forth with her, and she just looks like
they're like game planning what they're gonna do the next time they interact with her.
I think so. They're like waiting for the black dog to come out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's all for today's episode.
I think so too. I just want to mention, so this episode is sponsored by Stanley Drone. I think it's LLC. I don't know. It's my husband. Again, he does cell phone audits, but he also does other things too. I know Jimmy's getting into the drone world as well.
Yeah.
So my husband will fly houses to get that aerial view, I think is the term, of the houses and everything. So he's just trying to get into something. So he decided to sponsor us. So hopefully he'll take some pictures of us, or I don't know, something while we're at the park with the kids.
Yeah, that would be cool. Those videos are awesome. They get really good angles and views, and it's a whole cinematic experience.
It really is. But yeah, so I'll make sure to leave his information in the description, so check it out if y'all are in the San Antonio area and everything.
Well, guys, that's it for today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have TikTok, Instagram, newmommies.club is what you can find us on. And thank you so much for listening and watching.
Yeah, bye guys.
Bye.